What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
Well, Nick, I was certainly impressed with Ciryl Gane's performance over Tai Tuivasa. Francis Ngannou, not so much, and we'll come back to that later. But first, let's talk about the amazing UFC Paris main event. I mean, just how tough is Tai Tuivasa?
I mean, it was insane to see that fight go on for as long as it did. Tai's as tough as nails, and I think the real winners, obviously besides Ciryl Gane and Robert Whittaker, were the French fans. They got a taste of what it's like to have a crazy electric show from the UFC, main evented by one of their own. Tai Tuivasa came to scrap, and there were moments in that fight where I thought he was going to actually get the job done, but Ciryl Gane has that reach. He was able to fight basically a perfect game plan, and he was just the better, longer, crisper striker for longer, and it ended up paying off for him.
I think Ciryl Gane has some of the best footwork and striking in the entire UFC, not just in the heavyweight division. I think he moves super well. He knows exactly how to use his attributes. As you said, he's long. He's clearly very athletic. He's got some vicious body kicks, and he was just landing them at will against Tai. If it weren't just for the absolute sheer toughness of Tuivasa, that fight could have been over after one or two of those body kicks, because I think better men have fallen with kicks that weren't as hard as that. Think about Brock Lesnar versus Alistair Overeem. That sort of comes to mind, but some of those kicks were even more vicious than that.
Yeah, if you ever want to question Tai Tuivasa's chin, you're going to be sorely mistaken, because there were times in that fight where his body was hurt so bad that instead of blocking his face from getting punched or kicked, he was blocking his body and just put his chin down and let his head absorb some of those shots. You don't really want to do that against Ciryl Gane for very long, but it shows you just how powerful those body shots and body kicks were that Ciryl was landing. But I think that this sort of fight really did elevate Ciryl Gane and showed us that he's probably the best he's ever been. And if he comes in to the next fight he has, if it's against Francis or if it's not like that again, we could be looking at the most talented heavyweight on the roster right now.
I think Ciryl Gane probably is the most talented heavyweight in the roster. I would be willing to say that Ciryl Gane from last night would defeat Francis Ngannou if they were to fight again right now. He wasn't quite there the first time they fought, and I think it really has to do with that blood in the water viciousness. And I really liked what the UFC commentators said about his training. They brought in some serious, powerful heavyweights that are good up-and-coming fighters to spar with him. He was doing six-minute rounds leading up to the fight, switching opponents 3 minutes into the round. So if you think about it, that's 12 new faces, or if they're recycling people, I'm not sure exactly what they're doing, but essentially 12 new faces throughout 6-minute rounds. And his coaches said, we want you to hurt these guys. We want you to try to knock them out and knock them down, which is, I mean, that's not a very common practice, but for somebody like Ciryl, I think the only thing he was missing was that blood in the water finishing style, because the Francis fight kind of did drag on a little bit. You know, oddly enough, in his early part of his career, he had a lot of submissions via heel hook and stuff like that. But this Ciryl was a Ciryl that was out looking for blood, especially after he got knocked down. He showed great ability to pivot in adversity and come back even stronger. So I think the gaps in his game have been closed, and at only 31 years old, the sky is the limit for this young fighter.
Yeah, doing that for your training camp leading up to the fight is like a Shark Tank. That's what we call it,
yeah,
but on steroids. Usually you get 5-minute rounds and you got 5 different opponents each time, so he doubled up on that and with some extra time as well. And it's so funny how people just peg him as a skill striker, a volume striker, and somebody that doesn't have power. The guy's massive. He looks like $1 million, and he can hit very, very hard. The finishing sequence was incredible, and maybe Francis Ngannou wasn't all that impressed, but how could you not be fully impressed and blown away with the techniques that were on display from Ciryl Gane?
Yeah, and talking about the champ, it seems like Ciryl may be kind of in no man's land right now, because all signs are pointing to Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic happening in December. And then the champ, he's up for free agency come January if the UFC doesn't work something out with him before that happens. But the presumption would be that the winner of Jon versus Stipe, should that fight materialize, will be the person who fights Francis if Francis stays around. So I think Ciryl, on the heels of a performance like that, kind of now just has to sit down and wait. Obviously, stay in the gym, stay ready, because you never know what's going to happen. Injuries can happen, pullouts can happen. Stipe could get sick, and the next thing you know, you get Ciryl Gane versus Jon Jones, which, by the way, I love Stipe Miocic, but I would almost rather now see Ciryl versus John happen than John versus Stipe, because I think that would be a very tough test. If John Jones can come up to heavyweight and get past somebody like a Ciryl Gane after what we just saw against Tai Tuivasa, I mean, that would be truly something special.
Yeah, and if Ciryl Gane winds up getting a dance partner like John Jones or even somebody else at the top of the heap while he waits for the deck to get shuffled at heavyweight, everybody could wind up with a dance partner except for Francis Ngannou, and that includes the boxers that he's kind of interested in boxing. So I think that Francis Ngannou could be holding out for some sort of celebrity boxing match with Tyson Fury, and then if he gets booked up with Miocic, he's now off the table. You got Stipe and John, and they're off the table, and then you've got Ciryl Gane, who's just fought, but they might want to keep him active or might just want to not put him in there immediately with the champ again for a rematch. So you could have Ciryl Gane waiting for his opportunity and Francis Ngannou seemingly having nobody to fight, which could lead to them putting an interim title on that fight if the Stipe versus John happens.
I think that's more than likely, but credit to Ciryl Gane. That was an incredible fight. I don't think the 28-year-old Tuivasa loses any steam here. His stock went up, if anything, and he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Absolutely. Probably drank a couple shoeys after that, but
he definitely deserved them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for watching this video, guys. We're your hub for all things combat sports. If that's your jam, we appreciate a subscribe and a like on the video, and drop us a comment down below. We'll see you next time.
Peace.